Welcome in to the Rover Sports Podcast, and we are live on YouTube, and we are going to try to get this up every single week, and we are going to make an effort to try to record the lines, give our thoughts on the landscape of the NFL and college football, and I'm with my good friend. We're going to call him Davey Longhorns or Davey Horns to start off the show. Dave, how are you?
Doing great today. How are you, Spencer? Triple G.
I'm doing pretty well. I'm a little bit better than Sam Darnold. What do you make about that story?
Just can't be kissing all these random girls every weekend, you know? It must be tough being Sam Darnold, having every girl in the world throw themselves at you.
Yeah, is that really what the case is, do you think?
I have to believe so. I really have to believe so. I don't know any other way you get mono. I'm not a doctor, though, so maybe we can get a doctor's expert opinion here, but
right.
I'm not.
You're not a doctor. Breaking news.
I'm not a doctor. No, I'm not a doctor. Breaking news.
Well, he is gonna be out, Dave. Like, they always say in the news he's gonna be out indefinitely. And I don't know if you've seen the Jets schedule, but it is so daunting. So, have you seen the Jets schedule?
They got New England after this week. They got the Browns, then New England next week, right?
Yes.
And I don't know after that, but Browns, New England, that's all I need to know. If he's out for 2 games, you're 0-3. That's their season right there. You can't come back from that.
Can you talk about Adam Gase and your feelings about Adam Gase?
I mean, Adam Gase with the Jets right now, it's going to be hard to say giving him a fair shake if they start out 0-3, 0-4 if Darnold's not playing, but definitely was surprising higher, given the fact that he wasn't that great in Miami. He had one run to the playoffs in what I would call a bad division, other than what's it called, the Patriots, obviously.
Right.
I mean, Adam Gase is still, to me, a relatively unknown as far as the NFL quantity, you know?
I think he's actually known, and I think he's terrible because his demeanor reminds me of Ben McAdoo for the Giants, because I don't think he can communicate with these players. I think that Jamal Adams and these guys are going to start turning on Adam Gase. And you saw that offense, even with Sam Darnold. I don't know if we can blame that to him being sick with mono. I mean, I know that he made the playoffs with Matt Moore, but he still, in Miami, was such an underwhelming coach. And you even saw in week 1, David, you even saw Zach Taylor. And he actually looked the most impressive maybe out of all the first-year coaches. The Bengals only lose by 1 point.
No, going into a place like Seattle, which is historically one of the toughest places to play, yeah, it's definitely impressive loss if you can ever take an impressive loss in the NFL. It's a wins and losses league, but it's definitely a step towards the right direction. I wouldn't say it's a step in the right direction because if you don't win, it's never that, but it's towards that direction.
Right.
Not alarmingly bad.
So now I look, though, at this schedule, and I think it's the hardest schedule in the NFL because you have the Cowboys, the Eagles for the New York Jets who go at Philly. Dallas looks really good with Kellen Moore as their coordinator. So the fact that Adam Gase is probably going to be 0-6 and he's starting Trevor Siemian, I don't think now that there's any way that they could fire him, or do you believe that there's a chance he could be fired?
Anytime you're really bad in the NFL, it's not like college where you get as we've talked about, Spence, where you get the 2-year window, 3-year window at least, where you can kind of piggyback off of, well, these weren't my recruits, these aren't my guys, I need time to put my system in place. You got to trust the process. Anytime in the NFL you're really bad, it's unlikely that you get fired year 1 because these owners don't like to go with the buyout and pay a bunch of coaches a bunch of money that aren't coaching for them. But, I mean, if you're really bad and things just don't look like they're working out, Willie Johnson might cut the tie. I mean, I don't know. It's week 2 coming up, but
yeah,
honestly, it has not been a good start for him.
What are your big week 1 takeaways in the NFL after 1 week, Davey Longhorns?
My biggest takeaway is the Oakland Raiders. Everyone got all caught up into the Antonio Brown this and that. That's a distraction. Last year, the whole narrative, John Gruden doesn't know the NFL anymore. He's basically a fossil in the NFL, with the spider too wide banana, wants to play with the fullbacks, all that. My biggest takeaway is throughout the whole preseason, the team has looked great. And in week 1, they come out and they killed a great team in the Broncos. The Broncos looked really, really good on paper. So, they made the Broncos look terrible. Maybe this guy Gruden has just figured it out. Maybe Mayock has put together a really good team. The thing that's going to hurt them, though, with Jonathan Abrams out for the foreseeable future, maybe the whole year.
Yeah, and it's funny because the people who crap on John Gruden are the same people that said Josh Allen would never be an awesome quarterback in the NFL. And just because they take a popular opinion, they're allowed to crawl under a rock when things are going really well for the Oakland Raiders. And everybody is so quiet about John Gruden. And I'm like you. I like that you pointed out that everybody thought that John Gruden was so overrated. Famously, like Tennessee alums, you know how Tennessee was desperate for John Gruden. Last year when Chucky wasn't doing well, they're like, I'm happy we don't even have John Gruden. He's making $10 million. He's so overrated. You have Mark Davis in the white sunglasses. And I'm going to admit, Derek Carr last year was so uninspiring. He was awful. And after week 1, he was flat out incredible. 22 of 26. And the interesting way about the way that Oakland plays the game of football is it is a throwback style, meaning like they love going on long drives. The clock just continues to run. And Denver just didn't even get enough possessions in the game. I thought Flacco just predictably, he didn't look good. And for Oakland, it's just a matter of if they can keep this thing going all season. But you're absolutely right about Derek Carr. I think that it was shocking, and people are not going to be held accountable for really crapping on Derek Carr this entire offseason.
And another point I want to make about the Raiders, at least on Monday night for one game, they went out in the offseason. Everybody poo-pooed the signing of Trent Brown. Oh, they paid too much money for him. They paid too much money for this guy. He's a one-year wonder with the Patriots. Well, if I'm not mistaken, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Trent Brown looked unbelievable against those Von Miller, Chubb, whichever way they were lining up. I don't remember who was going up against him all night, but those guys didn't come close to Carr. And then you saw the way Jacobs ran the ball. So the other thing that I would not have given him credit 4 days ago, Mike Mayock. But it seems that his time with the NFL Network and all his time, evaluating it, he's got a real good pulse on the league, and he has made every right move so far, except for Antonio Brown. But that's a whole other story for another day. But at least in these other roster moves, it looks like a great roster that they're putting together. Maybe an 8-win team at best still this year, but the project is definitely going in the right direction, it seems like. And
we're going to learn a heck of a lot because they do play the Kansas City Chiefs. Jonathan Abram is hurt, like you talked about. And in the second half, the Denver Broncos, they did have success in the second half finally. And they're playing a Patrick Mahomes that was unbelievable against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So when we look at that matchup of Oakland and Kansas City, Mike Mayock, you look at Colleen Farrell, he was awesome in the game. Josh Jacobs, Hunter Renfrow making a huge catch, Foster Moreau having a catch and a run. Literally everybody he selected was great. Trent Brown, Incognito's going to be coming back. Josh Jacobs looks unbelievable. He had 2 touchdowns. He's going to be a fantasy workhorse. It might have been the best GM job that I've seen throughout 1 week. But what do you think about Kansas City, this offense? I was dead wrong on the Jaguars. Their defense got killed. What do you think about Sammy Watkins and Kansas City going into Oakland this week?
Well, here's the thing about Kansas City. You've got a generationally good quarterback. We all know that. Mahomes can make any throw at any time. Tyreek Hill goes down in what was it, like the second quarter he went down. Doesn't matter. Sammy Watkins will step up. He's going to have receivers. These guys are capable. It's all a matter of, can you keep Mahomes from extending plays? And you're not talking about Mahomes running down the field scrambling. But when you give the guy extra time, he seems to be that quarterback that more so than any other quarterback, better than Aaron Rodgers, it seems like. He extends the play. It seems like it goes for a touchdown every time whenever it extends, or 30, 40 yards, just fly out down the field. Can they keep contained, not get your pass rushers getting pushed up the line too much on him? And that's going to be a major challenge for Oakland. I mean, doesn't seem like anyone in the NFL has really figured it out except for New England for the first half last year in the AFC Championship game. I mean, it's a daunting task.
And then in the second half, they absolutely got destroyed. I thought Mahomes was unbelievable in the second half. And when you actually look at all the offenses in football, college and the NFL, I'd argue actually Andy Reid is right up there with Lincoln Riley right now. And they always shift that running back in motion. And I was looking at Mahomes, and some of the throws he makes are spectacular. But guys are running wide open like Sammy Watkins. There's coverage bust everywhere. He's kind of taking what McVay did, and he's lining up all the receivers like in the slot, bunched up sets. And maybe it's just the genius of Andy Reid. And this guy, I mean, he really he's putting Kansas City in an unbelievable position for success. And what do you think about Andy Reid with the Philadelphia Eagles? Like, he never won a game, but look at the Eagles compared to the New York Giants. You know, he set them up pretty damn good.
I mean, Andy Reid with the Eagles, I mean, probably when you look back at it, how underappreciated he really was, it's unbelievable. I mean, made Donovan McNabb's career for whatever you believe in Donovan McNabb, was a very good quarterback in the NFC East for years. I mean, Andy Reid is just a known commodity in the NFL. He's probably the best coach ever not to win a Super Bowl. So, the guy, every week it seems like you're 100% right. These guys are running wide open. And you start to wonder, is it the arm talent of Mahomes where these defense feel like they have to cover all these different things and there's just so many busted coverages? Yes, probably, but you're 100% right. I mean, guys don't just get wide open without a great scheme. And that's what Andy Reid seems to be doing every week. I mean, it's unbelievable.
And you hear the guy talk, and it's not like he's so inspiring in a press conference like a McVay.
Yeah, you don't need to be inspiring. If those 11 guys on offense and your backups, everyone believes in what these guys are preaching on the field as far as scheme and all that, doesn't need to be inspiring. Your actions are inspiring. You don't need to do the hoorah, the actions, the teaching of the offense, that's what's inspiring to these guys, because these guys have the utter confidence week in, week out, knowing our coach is putting us in the best position to win a game. And that's all that you need. You don't need to be fake and win one for the Gipper speeches every week. They know going in, they don't need that speech. We're going to win.
Let's talk about the slate of games. Let's hit it. We're here with Davey Longhorns eventually. Right now, you're kind of like PFT commenter. You're kind of an alias. I want to keep your face hidden, your identity hidden.
There we go.
What do you think about this Niners-Cincinnati game? What's really interesting I want to talk about the 49ers. I mean, Jameis Winston had 3 interceptions. Jimmy Garoppolo looks a little bit hesitant. They go on the road to Cincy. They're now 2-point dogs. This line has really moved. And I'm a little bit worried. Maybe Cincinnati's defense can play really well. There's no Marvin Lewis there anymore. Maybe this team is really undervalued in terms of talent. And are you buying the 49ers? Do you think the 49ers can escape with another win this week?
This is one of those games that, I mean, it defines the NFL, and it could go either way. Some of the keys to it are going to be, now that you've seen Zach Taylor, some of his stuff on film, things like that, do the 49ers have an adjustment? You know, Does John Ross come out and have another great game? I mean, these are all questions we just don't know. Jimmy G looked very good week one. I thought the 49ers defense looked inspired compared to what it had in the last year and a half, where at times the defense seemed like it was non-existent last year, to be quite honest. I mean,
yeah. Well, Bosa's helping out. D Ford looks great.
I mean, D Ford's an animal. We all know that. The reason he left the Chiefs, obviously, is, wasn't going to sign the franchise tag, all that good stuff. D Ford, great player. We all know it. Defense is much improved. Bosa is a beast. And then you're going to start seeing, I think, Jimmy G each week, with the knee. Maybe he gets a little more comfortable, the rehab just a little bit more week by week. That being said, I'm not sure with this game. If I was betting this game, I would truly just stay away from it.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Bengals could end up winning it. I think it's going to be a close game late. It's really the 49ers defense altering Andy Dalton, because Jimmy G, he still is playing very scared, and I guess I don't blame him because of the ACL. Like, he's sailing a lot of balls. Like, he's not hanging in and going for progressions. Like, he was ugly. I got to give credit to Todd Bowles. I think that Tampa's playing really well. Like, he's not a good coach, but Tampa Bay, their defense is humming. So tonight's game, we have Carolina and Tampa. I think that Tampa can do it as long as Jameis just doesn't turn it over. I think it's going to be super low scoring and ugly.
Yeah, I would agree. My key to this game would be, I mean, you said a great point about the defense for Tampa. Can Cam Newton throw a ball downfield? We don't know this yet. He comes out with that great quote in the press conference yesterday or the day before, I dare Tampa Bay to think that I can't throw the ball 20 yards down the field. Well, you did it only once, Cam, week one, and that ball went flying over your receiver's head by about 5 or 6 yards, and, you never tried it again.
I think
sorry,
go ahead.
No, I was going to say dink and dunk. Yeah, that's great, but can Cam extend the defense, which has kind of been a staple to his game throughout his whole career? He's never been that guy who's hitting more than 60% of his passes. I think only 2 times in his career has he thrown for over 60% completion percentage. So if he's not extending, I see it as a hard game for the Panthers to come and blow them out.
If you look at Cam's career, he has the one Super Bowl run where he was ridiculous, where they got up on Seattle in the first half. Russell Wilson almost made that a ball game. The Carson Palmer game was epic. Cam Newton, he was dabbing everywhere. You fought like after that, even after he didn't jump on the fumble in the Super Bowl, you still thought Cam Newton was ready to just kind of be that year in and year out guy, like that Auburn Tigers magical run of Cam Newton. And he just really hasn't done it with his accuracy. You look at Cam Newton getting hurt. I think Cam Newton actually, when he was dabbing and doing all that stuff, like just bragging, I actually was really rooting for Denver in that Super Bowl. I'm curious about what you were thinking. And how would you attribute Cam Newton's inconsistency? Do you think he's always been overrated? Or what do you think about his career arc? And do you think Cam is more likable because he's failed, since that year?
I don't think that Cam has ever been overrated. I think that this is a guy who is a below-average passer, but it's kind of just one of these guys who he's everything that Tim Tebow wishes he could be. It's one of these guys that has always found a way to win a game. He's able to throw the ball enough downfield to where his running game, whether it's Cam or back in the day, it's Jonathan Stewart and the array of backs. Now you've got Christian McCaffrey. You can't judge Cam Newton on everything, every throw he makes, because there's so many other intangibles that go along with him. I don't think there's anything overrated with him. I think what you're seeing now is a banged-up Cam Newton. This guy has probably taken more hits, or if not the most, probably second or third most since he's been in the NFL. He's a guy that, when you think about it, the year he gets picked number one, who was supposed to be the number one pick in that draft? It's supposed to be Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck stays at Stanford for a year. This guy has outlasted Andrew Luck in the NFL when you start thinking about it. The guy has won MVP in the NFL. The guy has gotten to a Super Bowl. There's so many different quarterbacks that people would wait in front of Cam Newton, but haven't even done all that. So
and you know what? He's never had the weapons. He's had Ron Rivera that I look at as very average. The talent around Newton, other than McCaffrey, there hasn't. Greg Olsen is always kind of hurt. He was very, very talented tight end. I don't know. I don't even know if he's a Hall of Fame consideration. Cam Newton or Greg Olsen. I know Olsen is up in New Jersey there, but Cam's never had the talent. And also I look at North Turner, Mike Shula. He's never had it scripted like Mahomes, but you're absolutely right about Cam Newton and the hits he takes. They all look at him and say, "Oh, he's so big, he'll never get hurt."
Yeah, and don't get my mistake with Cam Newton and calling it. Just because I'm not saying he's overrated doesn't mean I'm calling him all-time great. I just don't think that it's hard to get a true read on what he really is. But to me, he's a winner. He's a baller. He's given everything every week in the NFL. He's probably one of these quarterbacks that is not. It's going to probably be similar to Andrew Luck in the sense of his retirement may be coming sooner rather than later because of all the hits that he has taken at some point. I'm not saying it's coming tomorrow. I'm not saying it's coming at the end of the year, but 2-3 years. I mean, he's played the game in a different way than anyone ever really has.
I think Cam has that it factor. And when I look at that division, Matt Ryan, I was there. There were chances for Matt Ryan to win Super Bowls. I think Dan Quinn has been decent. And I just think Cam has that it factor late in a game that, like, Matt Ryan just has never really had.
I agree. I would take Cam Newton over Matt Ryan any day of the week. And Matt Ryan may be more pleasing to the eye as far as what you may look at in a quarterback. He'll put up bigger numbers. You can give me every number in the world, and it's going to be hard for me to argue Cam Newton's better. But if I'm taking one guy for one drive at the end of the game, there's no doubt.
It is because Matt Ryan has had Julio Jones. And let's kind of I'm gonna direct the conversation to this week's game. We're gonna go here and analyze a lot of these games. I think the Eagles looked fine. I'm not pressing any panic button on the Eagles. I think that they even look great. This coming from a Giants fan, the way that they responded. Deshaun Jackson, I thought he was too old to really impact the game. Apparently, Deshaun is still impacting the game. And this is an interesting Eagles-Falcons game because the Falcons, week 1, Minnesota handled them. What do you look at in this game? Do you really think that Philly's going to go down there and blow them out?
I don't think I mean, not anyone goes into that dome, and no one has really historically blown out the Falcons at home. I personally think that the Eagles are a better team than the Falcons, but when you say go down to Atlanta and blow them out, no, that doesn't happen. It hasn't happened historically. That team is very good at home. They always will be. Actually, I thought the Eagles looked great week 1 probably after the first quarter. I know you started seeing a team that looked really good, really quick. They had a couple of first quarter jitters. Vernon Davis gets like a miracle play down the sideline. Should have been tackled for what would have been a fourth down. Somehow he turns it into a touchdown. The Eagles are going to be just fine. I'm zero panic. Case Keenum gets a garbage touchdown late that they gave him. Game could have easily been a 20-point game. The Falcons, every alarm with the Falcons, Spencer.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just you go.
Oh, you're saying that at Atlanta, you still think Atlanta's going to fight at home, and it's still going to be a hell of a game.
Atlanta always fights at home. I mean, when have they not? When you look at them historically under Matt Ryan, I mean, this is one of the best home teams in the NFL.
Right, in that dome, the fireworks on offense. I still am confident. I think this Eagles defense, that's what I really want to see. If the Eagles defense can play pretty lights out, this will be a huge momentum win. I think that Carson Wentz, the fact that he's healthy, and I guess I'm going to open up another can of Pandora's box with this next statement. I think that the Eagles, in hindsight, they made a really good decision with Carson, and Nick Foles is now hurt, so I just think that Carson's going to be the guy, and it's really about their defense when you look at Philly.
I completely agree, and I agree with you on the Carson Nick Foles thing. I mean, Carson Wentz was the best player in the NFL in 2017 until what was it, week 14, week 15 when he tears the ACL. It was far and beyond the best player. This last year, what did you see a lot from Carson Wentz? Probably what you're going to see from Jimmy G. Going back to that with the ACL, you're not quite confident, and guys are much better, especially quarterbacks. Year 2 off of the ACL, guys could be fine. I think fine might not be the right word. Great probably is the word, and that's just who he is,
I'm going to try to get you to not agree. I think we're agreeing too much, maybe.
Maybe that's fine. That's fine.
I'm gonna maybe go with some hot takes here. This is Rover Sports, the podcast. I want to thank everybody on YouTube that's listening. I got my guy Davey here. He knows the NFL, one of the smartest guys that I talk to about NFL football. And, week 1, I look at the Tennessee Titans now, and there's going to be overreactions in the NFL. And maybe I'm just dead wrong on this Titans team. I said going into the year, Marcus Mariota, I don't trust him at all. I think that the Browns are screwed, and I look at the Tennessee Titans, and you look at this South Division. Geez, maybe it's Vrabel's time. I thought Vrabel was just over his head.
I personally disagree.
There we go.
I don't think, there you go. Yeah. That's perfect time. I think that the Titans, come and win this division. Anything you know about me, Spencer, I think you could give the Colts a few weeks, you give Brissett a few weeks. That team is the best team in that division. Obviously, the loss of Luck, it's going to be very, very, very hard for him to rally around Jacoby Brissett. But that's a great team if you had Andrew Luck. So I look at this Titans team. It's a very average team, in my opinion. Very, very average team. Derrick Henry, okay, some days he's good, some days he's bad. That's what you get from him. Mariota, who the heck knows from day to day with him. He seems to play good against the teams that are supposed to be great, and then the bad teams, he is one of the worst quarterbacks you could ever find. My favorite for the division probably still is the Texans. They seem like they'll be able to put up the most points week in, week out. I think eventually throughout the course of the season, maybe a 9. This is a 9-win division winner. The AFC South, mark my words, it's a 9-win.
So are you taking the Colts or the Texans right now?
I still got to see a little more from the Brissett. I'll lean towards the Texans, but if Brissett seems to get comfortable, I think that the Colts could run away with the division.
I would personally. I mean, it's interesting. I think Bill O'Brien is on the chopping block, and the way he handled that last drive. I mean, I thought it was malpractice just letting the Saints. I mean, because as Giants fans, we know the Graham Gano situation last year, where these kickers now, even in the Tampa-Cleveland game in overtime when Hugh Jackson was still on Cleveland, I've seen a lot of times these kickers bomb 60-yard attempts, and I was confident. Even when the Texans scored, I'm like, Drew Brees is coming down, and he's going to get them in field goal range. And the fact, it was 6 seconds left, I was yelling at Sean Payton. I wanted the Saints to win. I was yelling at Sean Payton because I thought that he really mismanaged that clock by letting it get to 6 seconds. And all you got to do is play pump and run, and if you even lose on a Hail Mary, it's better.
I mean, I would agree with the bump and run. I don't think that they mismanaged the whole drive going in, giving them too much time. I mean, you scored a touchdown when you can score a touchdown. Obviously, in 2 plays, you don't know when you're going to have another chance. So obviously, they had a quick hit. I mean, I do agree. You don't play prevent defense to give them a quick 8-yard hitch. They were never going for the Hail Mary. I don't know what the fuck they were thinking. Mm-hmm. Excuse the cursing, but
oh no, YouTube's taking us off now.
Yep.
We lasted 29 minutes.
Yeah, put the parental locks on. Sorry, YouTube.
We'll cut that out.
Do better next time.
We'll cut that out.
Okay. But yeah, I just don't know what he was doing. It was mind-boggling, frustrating watching what was a great offensive drive, even though it was 2 plays, and then it was just you reverted back so much on defense. That's what scares me with picking them to win the division. But on the other side of the ball, it's a very good offense, it seems to be.
You know what's so funny, David, is that you and I have had this conversation actually this week about the quarterbacks in the NFL. And you ranked the top 5, and then you said everybody else is kind of in the mix behind them in terms of being a very good quarterback who could turn it on. And Deshaun Watson, I think, is the classic, like, he's not going to be the best of the best because his decision-making is not going to be – he's not going to be a Mahomes, but, geez, I mean, that guy's one of the clutchest players ever. I know you're an Alabama guy, too. The guy just has, like, that it factor, man, and I think he seamlessly got into this league and done a hell of a job.
He has done a hell of a job. I think the one thing that will always keep him out, and Spencer, when we go back to it, it was 4 guys. My 4 guys, I'll name them right now: Brady, Breeze, Rodgers, Mahomes. Other than that, you can take a real good hard look at it. You can argue how great these guys are. It just doesn't. Everyone kind of comes into that same grouping of up and down at some point. But Deshaun Watson, I think a lot of the factor with him is it's health. Even on that Monday night game, what did you see? He goes down, leads a great drive. He's into the 10th. I know he didn't come out of the game. I get it. But somehow it's like, do you trust this guy to play 16 for you each year? He's going to play 14 games, 13 games. Maybe he has a season-ending injury. He's a frail guy. He likes to run. He's a great quarterback when he does play, but, you know, it just seems like he's always going to be hurt in some capacity or the other.
You're absolutely right. We're talking here with Davey. I'm going to call you David Horns, and this is a really weak college slate of college football. But I guess I want to battle through these NFL games quickly, and now we're going to preview these games this week. I think the Dallas Cowboys look like one of the best teams in football. I think Kellen Moore, if I had a choice for the New York Giants, I would hire Kellen Moore and maybe get rid of Pat Shurmur. I just think that he could be the next boy genius, the next Sean. Gosh, I shouldn't say that because Sean McVay is incredible. But, geez, I just think Prescott is like a new guy. He just looked new. Maybe he's Joe Burrow.
I mean, I think Dak Prescott and Joe Burrow should never be good right now because Dak Prescott was doing what Joe Burrow did in the SEC for almost 3 years at Mississippi State, a little bit more consistent. But you know what? We'll give Joe Burrow his day later in the show. But
right.
You know what? Dak Prescott, yeah, he looks great. If I was a Giants fan, I actually disagree with you. I want the guy on the other side of the ball. You know the way I think of him, Rashard. I think he's the guy that when they don't accomplish what they want, and that could be losing the Super Bowl this year. You know, they're just going to get rid of Jason Garrett. I think that's your head coach for the Cowboys. I think it's being groomed. I think it's almost obvious that if Garrett were to be fired this year, that's going to be the head coach next year. It could be wrong, but I think it's pretty obvious.
I think you look at Garrett and he needs to resign or something because if he has a good year, I mean, Jerry has to get rid of Garrett because he's literally doing nothing on that sideline, Garrett. I mean, maybe he's there for moral support.
I agree. And I know it sounds harsh, but, you know, sports can be a harsh business. I think anything less than the Super Bowl win, Garrett doesn't come back next year. And I'm not even calling him the favorite or anything like that, but Jerry, his time is ticking. I mean, he's not getting any younger. Guy wants to win a Super Bowl before he dies. So it might just be time to cut the cord with the guy. And the last thing you would want if you're Jerry Jones is to let one of those two coaches get out the building if they're really that hot of coordinators and you believe, hey, this guy could be my head coach. And you just kind of always know you're holding Garrett just to hold him, you know.
Exactly. Look at the Redskins with McVay, and now they're stuck with Jay Gruden.
Yeah, I mean, that's it's part of the business that I think, you know, it's not oftentimes looked at when you see these hot coordinators take these other jobs. It's like, well, the guy who had the head job in front of him, really the team should have looked at it and been like, yeah, it's a hard decision. It might be an unpopular decision. It might hurt my pocket a little bit. But do you think Dan Snyder would be really happy right now if McVay was his head coach?
Yes. And here's the thing about Jerry and Garrett and Jerry Jones. He's very similar to John Gruden in the fact that people have been doubting him for a long time. And maybe it's the press conferences after the games. I mean, with Tony Romo, he had those opportunities. He did the Herschel Walker trade. I know that they haven't won a Super Bowl in like 25 years. This Dallas team, Richard is special because he's taken a secondary. You have Byron Jones, but then you're putting in it's hard to even name other guys off the top of my head in the secondary. Maybe Chidobe Awuzie, Jordan Lewis, but these aren't household names.
I know other than Byron Jones, and I know sports pretty well. You know that.
Yeah.
I don't know who these guys are. I honestly don't.
Well, Jordan Lewis, remember Michigan?
I mean, I know Jordan Lewis, but what I'm saying is these guys, you don't know who they are, the household names. These guys are nobodies, basically.
And Richard, like you said, has made them into incredible players. Richard is young. Kellen Moore likes Dak Prescott. So if you pay Kellen Moore a good salary, he will stay there for about 3 or 4 more years. If you have Richard for about 4 more years, I guess the one thing is now they're going to pay Dak like $30 million. So now you're risking like a Van Der Esch, like the Byron Jones. You're risking some of these superstars getting away. I think DeMarcus Lawrence is making so much money. So I don't know if this could be a Cowboys dynasty, but I'm going to ask you, if Chris stays there, do you think it is going to be like a Cowboys year in, year out thing, or do you think that the money's going to catch up to this team?
Well, I think money catches up to all these good teams. I mean, that's kind of the nature of the NFL. It's what makes it, frustrating for the players because, they're cutting cap all the time. There's not enough money for all the players, and you'll hear all the hoopla every year. Everybody's holding out. But I do think that this team, when you have locked up your core of Dak and Zeke, will always be very, very, very good for the next 4 to 5 years. I don't see it any other way. I mean, yes, I think what's going to hurt with the Dallas Cowboys in the coming years is going to be the offensive line. I think that's where you're really going to start seeing the money just kind of dry up real quick, and these guys are going to walk. And that's going to be the dynamic with Zeke, who's had the best offensive line in football his first 3 years. I mean, come year 5, year 6, there is not going to be a great offensive line there, I don't believe. So I think that's where, can they get through it? I do believe that they're going to pay Cooper. I do believe Dak is going to get his deal soon. I mean, the coach is getting their money. It's going to happen. That doesn't affect the salary cap. Van Der Esch, you have him for another couple of years controlled. I think there are great things in place, but yes, the money will catch up to them at some point.
And Jerry has really set up this thing successfully. I think the Cowboys, when you look at the landscape of this league, there's no reason I think why they shouldn't win the NFC this year. I think that it's their time. What do you think about that? Do you think that you would say that?
Let's go through the NFC. I would say the Cowboys. Who you got? So, I mean, I still think week 1, they didn't look great. I still will give a slight edge. I think that the Cowboys are more talented. I'm giving my slight edge to the Saints. Somehow the Saints have been close the last 2 years. I feel like there's going to be a motivation. Somehow they're going to get over that top. They're going to go 8-0, 7-1 in the Dome this year. They don't ever lose there. I think the defense will look better. The defense was absolutely atrocious. If that's the way the defense is going to play, my prediction is going to be wrong. But I do believe that the Saints are going to be right there. I still believe that the Rams are better than the Cowboys as far as some of the things that they're doing because you got the special coach in Sean McVay. I think that the Cowboys will disappoint this year. And then once they make that change at the top, that's when they'll take the next step. So I think that they're a year away still. Doesn't mean that the players are a year away, but they are, as an organization, a year away.
We're going to take a couple of questions on the NFL. I'm just going to say right there before I get to the question, I don't think that the Saints are going to be as cooperative. I think that their defense is not that great, Dennis Allen. I think the Cowboys have a better defense. As long as Dak and the Cowboys can maybe get home field and run the ball, I look at Eagles, Cowboys, actually 49ers are my surprise teams that is going to come out maybe of the West. You still have the Rams. I'm going to get to John Lachuche. He asks a good question. We have a couple of Bills guys in the podcast. I'll tell you who else is a Bills guy. Or it could be, yes, it's Tim Sherry, another Bills guy here. Thank you guys for watching on Rover Sports. And John says, can we talk about the Bills defense for 9 consecutive games holding teams under 200 yards passing? And that leads right into our Giants and Bills game. You watched Bills-Jets last week. Can this Bills team make a playoff run? I think their defense is awesome. I'm sort of starting to believe in Sean McDermott. I never really bought in. What do you think about this Bills defense and this team?
I think that the Bills, first of all, I'm going to say it week 2, after watching it week 1, the Bills will make the playoffs this year. The fact that you have, as a wild card, the fact that you have the Dolphins 2 more times, the Jets at this point will be coming up to Buffalo. I think there are wins to be had. Maybe you steal one versus New England, then there are wins to be had on the schedule there. I mean, it's going to be tough playing the NFC East. I get that. But at the same time, Josh Allen, to me, has a little bit of that Cam Newton it factor. Somehow it comes down to that, the defense holds you in the game, things like that. The defense seems to just make play after play after play. You can't throw anything on that secondary, it seems like. I mean, I haven't seen a better coverage after week 1. You couldn't do anything on that defense. What did they score, the Jets? Pick 6, a safety.
Yeah. And
then basically after that, nothing, to be pretty much honest. And then, the offense was sputtering all game, but somehow Josh Allen, a lot like a Cam Newton, somehow just kind of makes those plays, gritty plays, gets the job done. And I think that's what you're going to start seeing, a lot of close one-possession games. I think that they're going to squeak out a lot of these one-possession games this year with that elite defense. And, yeah, I think that they do have a chance to make that wild card this year.
I think it's maturity. I think it's Brandon Beane silently hitting. Like we talked about Mayock being a really good GM. I think Beane has really done awesome. Singletary contributed, Cody Ford, Tre'Davious White. They got away from Doug Whaley. They hired a retread in Rex Ryan. And they have Leslie Frazier, who is just perfect as an assistant coach. He's been one of the best for the Buffalo Bills. That defensive staff is awesome. And then you're an Alabama guy. You know Brian Dable. He is not going anywhere. He is a career coordinator, kind of like a Mike Patton. So, when I look at the Buffalo Bills, they definitely have their opportunities. Josh Allen, it's all about maturity. And that's a reason why maybe you argue for playing guys in their first year, because this year he has that added edge that he needed against the New York Jets, like that mindset. I'm going to ask you this question. On paper, it looks like the Buffalo Bills should beat the Giants by 7 or 10 points. Do you see that occurring?
I think it can occur. I think the thing with the Bills is it's just going to come down to, does Josh Allen week in, week out limit his mistakes? Because if he gets to that point where in the game where I trust him with that last drive or something like that, if he's limiting his mistakes, against a bad Giants defense, yeah, I think the Bills win this game, 7 this week. I mean, I would totally have confidence. I don't know how the Giants are going to move the ball this week.
Because if you get pressure on Eli, like he'll shrivel up.
Yeah.
I mean,
I agree. Without Sterling Shepard, with a team that doesn't give up passing yards, yeah, it's going to be a long day for Eli Manning. And, we can get into another discussion about, Giants start going 0-2. Eli doesn't look great. With Daniel Jones, but let's focus on the Bills. I think, this is a game made for the Bills to win.
Well, here's why I push back. I mean, one, the smart money is going on the Giants. It's a 1-point game. I have to admit that I was impressed. One of the best games Shurmur has coached was when Chase Daniel was in there for the Chicago Bears. The Giants, against the Bears would run the football. They would not turn it over. Against the Indianapolis Colts defense, the Giants had an impressive offense. The Bills defense, it could be like that Cowboys-Rams game. I mean, last year in the playoffs, I did not expect C.J. Anderson to eliminate the Cowboys from the playoffs, and Le'Veon Bell was going on the ground. The Giants have to run it at the middle of that Bills defense, and it's possible Saquon Barkley could do this. You look at the Bills wide receivers, they're not that scary. The Giants defense, like Ogletree, could intercept the ball. It's a Giants home game. I think it is going to be closer than a lot of people think. It's all about Saquon, and we have to see Pat Shurmur give the ball to Saquon Barkley. I fought Shurmur last week on 3rd and 1. He needs to give it to Saquon more.
I'll go into a whole nother thing with the Giants there. I think that the Giants, with some of their approaches with Saquon, are showing that they might not be all in for this year. They'll say all the right things, but it seems like already that they may be limiting Saquon's touches a little bit. They don't want to wear him down. I don't know if it's for this year or the future, but it's very alarming that 3rd and 1, you don't give him the ball. On the goal line, you're giving the ball to Wayne Gallman. There's something there. I don't know what it is. It's just, I don't think that the Giants are going to pound away with 30 touches to Saquon Barkley the way that they probably should, and probably make them a decently successful team. But it doesn't seem that they're willing to do that. They're not willing to wear him out for a team that doesn't seem to be that good this year.
All right, let's go deep conspiracy. I've been holding you back too long. We got to get Conspiracy Dave in here. We have to talk about your Daniel Jones take. We have to talk about, if you were Eli Manning, would you want to be traded? Would you want to leave? We have to talk about Shurmur, the end of the game. I want you to have the floor and talk about that.
Okay, just like we talked about the other day, Spencer, my thing with Daniel Jones here, when you could say easily, oh, Daniel Jones gets 4 passes, you bring him in late, it's a perfect time to get him some experience late. The way I look at it is, when do quarterbacks ever come out of that game with 5 minutes to go, 6 minutes to go, if they're not hurt in the NFL? It doesn't happen. Historically, you can look at every game in the NFL. That does not happen. And if you say I'm wrong, look at these games that are blowouts. Look at Ben Roethlisberger the other day. Did he come out of the game when they were down like 30 in the 4th quarter? No. Does Matt Ryan come out of the game the other day when they're down 24 in the 4th quarter? No. Pat Shurmur, in the back of his mind, hates Eli. Maybe not hate. Hate is not the right word. Doesn't want Eli Manning to be his quarterback. He is saying, I will ride or die with Daniel Jones. I can't do it because Jones doesn't want me to. But he throws Daniel Jones into that Cowboy game, hoping and praying that he throws a touchdown so that momentum becomes a little bit harder on the owner to get DJ into the game. Because, honestly, if Eli Manning's your quarterback, there was absolutely zero to gain by putting Daniel Jones into that game, other than you have a controversy on your hands if he does well. That was not to get him experience. That was just hoping and praying he was going to do something well. And honestly, I'm one of Eli's biggest fans. He's a Hall of Famer. There's no doubt about it. The guy, maybe he deserves better, probably does deserve better. But this organization, honestly, has treated him like a king. So it's hard to say he deserves better because they have stuck by him through and through. They fired a coach for him because they benched him for a week. So it's hard. It's definitely a sticky situation. I think he should be traded. I think a perfect spot would be Jacksonville. I don't think that you're going to see Nick Foles coming back any time before, week 10, 12. Jacksonville will be a logical spot. If the Colts really get out sputtering, I know you just gave Brissett the big contract. That may be a logical spot for 1 year. There's a lot of factors that go into it, but Pat Shurmur doesn't want Eli Manning to be his quarterback. Daniel Jones is his guy. It's 100% obvious. Daniel Jones doesn't go into that game unless he is praying that something good happens and that, he throws a touchdown. Then by week 2, if they went 0-2, he was going to probably try to be hoping to make that move. The reality is, Daniel Jones, he goes, he fumbles the ball. There's no pressure on Eli right now. But Don't expect that to last too long.
Well, here's the interesting thing. And this is the ultimate, like, if they're not running Saquon and they're kind of tanking. I think that if you look at this week, the New York Giants, if they lose to Buffalo, at best, they're going to be 2-3. They're probably going to lose to either Minnesota at home or away to Tampa Bay. If they beat the Buffalo Bills, I see Eli going to Tampa Bay. This is like a one-game scenario. Before the season, I thought that it would be perfect. I was buying into all the Gettleman quotes that the Giants could be that surprise team in this league and go 11-5. I thought DeAndre Baker. I watched him at Georgia. I am still excited about DeAndre Baker. I looked at Jabril Peppers and Bethea, all the stuff that James Betcher was saying. The Cowboys, maybe it was just Kellen Moore, but that was just such terrible defense that if the Giants are going to even play that terrible of defense, if the Giants are the team that showed up week 1 and Buffalo wins, then even as an Eli fan, I really do like Eli because I think that the fan base in New York has turned on Eli actually too quick, and he has been treated like a king. But he also had Jerry Reese, the offensive line problems. Ben McAdoo, I think, is like Gase. I think he was a horrible manager of players. I think he was one of the worst coaches ever. So I think Eli has done so much for this franchise. He's even saved John Mara in a lot of ways. So I guess for Eli, it would be better to see him go to another team if the Giants can't beat Buffalo. And guess what? As an Eli fan, I don't want to see him retire this year because he's done too much losing. I want there to be one more great year of Eli somewhere else.
I think that the problem for Eli, I don't know if that exists, to be 100% honest. And it kind of goes to that, what you were just talking about with Jerry Reese. Did they throw away his prime? He, lack of a better term, he's, how old is he now? 38, 37?
Yeah, he's 38.
38, okay. With the Jerry Reese, Ben McAdoo, yeah, he wasn't a great quarterback then, but the mismanagement of the roster and the coaches, I mean, they might have thrown away his last few good years just on bad teams, and that's an unfortunate, sad reality for Eli Manning.
No, it really is. And also, looking at Odell Beckham in Cleveland, I thought that offense without Odell Beckham was actually better. It was kind of like the Oakland Raiders without Antonio Brown. You had Tyrell Williams step up. I think Ingram and Shepard looked in that Dallas game as good as I've ever seen them play. I think the offensive line finally looked good. Like, their offense did move the ball. And you look at Odell in this watch absurdity. Odell Beckham, it's just going to be problem after problem with this guy. That's how I see it.
Odell Beckham's a guy that I wouldn't touch with a 10-mile pole. I think he's more of a cancer than Antonio Brown. I really believe it because I think at least Antonio, when he does get onto the field, there is no prima donna or anything like that. It's a lot of off-the-field stuff, but Odell is a prima donna on the field also. I wouldn't want anything to do with it because I think there's just too much that goes along with Odell. I couldn't emphasize it enough. I was wanting nothing to do with him.
Part of what made Eli very endearing is how he's putting up with a lot of crap and how Eli Manning has never really complained. But if he would have tried to put Odell in check, if he would have worked with Coughlin in the beginning, I think you maybe would have seen Odell maybe moved quicker. Eli Apple was another personality that just didn't fit in with the Giants. Snacks Harrison, Landon Collins. It's just such a just such a mismanagement of personalities. And I think his Achilles heel might literally be his Achilles heel in terms of not getting out of the pocket. But other than his in-game, I think Eli has been too quiet and passive of a leader, and he's just kind of like that buoy in the ocean, and he kind of needs like that. He needs that coach. He needed Michael Strahan and Justin Tuck to be those vocal leaders, and he just hasn't taken over this Giants team.
I think my last point on Eli, and we'll go to actually Eli Apple. When Laramie Tunsil was on the board, when he fell, we all remember the story with the posting of the weed, smoking the bong. But when Laramie Tunsil was on the board, what did Eli Apple get picked, like at number 11 or 12?
Yeah, it was like 10, I think.
10. And you have the number one draft prospect on the board for a team that has a terrible offensive line. That's where the leadership of Eli Manning should have been calling Jerry Reese, calling Mara, and demanding, just pounding the table, knock on wood if you're with me, and saying, draft Tunsil. We need him. This is our glaring weakness. No, we get Eli Apple, a dime a dozen cornerback who never ended up being any good. But everyone knew Tunsil was an all-pro right tackle. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, now the Giants, the one thing I am going to say before we go to college football and do a little 15 minutes with college football is the one good thing about getting Daniel Jones into the game this season is we can learn if Shurmur is a John Fox or if Shurmur has a future in New York.
I couldn't agree more. And also, even though it doesn't seem to be this way, you'll also learn if Daniel Jones is the guy you move on with, or is he Josh Rosen? And you, in a quarterback-heavy draft next year, have to draft a quarterback and just bite the bullet, similar to a Kyler Murray. I tend to think that Daniel Jones is a guy that is here to stay, though. But that's just being objective.
So, Dave, if the Giants do beat the Bills, though, do you think that do you think there's a chance that the Giants can maybe hit a little run in the beginning of the year with Eli?
I don't think so. And that might not even be that Eli isn't playing well. I think Eli might play very, very well. I think that this defense is just awful. I mean, I think the defense will hold them back for everything that they're going to do on offense this year. I think the defense is not going to be good enough for NFL standards. Maybe they'll put together a good game or two here and there, and you'll be able to say, well, they were able to stop this team or that team. I don't think that the consistency is going to be there. I think DeAndre Baker is a work in progress. I think your best cornerback right now may be Corey Ballantyne. And Janoris Jenkins, I mean, he's just there because he's being paid, and they just couldn't afford to have a more dead cap on the team this year. So,
right.
I think the defense is terrible. But, yeah, as good as Eli may play, this defense will hold them back.
We're talking here with Davey Horns, and Dave, this has been a really fun podcast. Why don't you ask me a question about college football? Like, what intrigues you about this week, and why don't you ask me a question about college football?
Okay, here's my take for you. I know you're a big Midwest guy. I want to know your feelings on Iowa versus Iowa State, the battle for the Hawkeye State.
I'm going to try to guess this line. I haven't seen it yet, but it's in Ames, Iowa. I bet that the Hawkeyes are -3. The Cyclones are -3 at home. Is that correct?
I think if I'm not mistaken, that the Hawkeyes are 2-point favorites.
This is a big game for Matt Campbell because, at TCU, like, he's had these big wins, but at the same time, like, he's crapped the bed. Like even last year, there was a game with Matt Campbell and Iowa State. I kind of forget this game. You maybe followed Iowa State closer. But they were rolling in the middle of the year, and Matt Campbell was getting rumored for Ohio State job, and he was getting rumored for the Jets job in the NFL. And I thought Campbell was unbelievable. And then in the bowl game, they lost, and they just looked terrible at the end of last year. It was very peculiar because they had Brock Purdy. I was ready for Iowa State to roll. This is going to be a low-scoring game. Iowa never beats themselves. I think Kirk Ferentz in Iowa, one of the most overrated coaches ever. You could talk about Jim Harbaugh being average and just pretty good. Kirk Ferentz in Iowa, they never do anything special. That year they went undefeated, was just part of an easy schedule. So I look at this game, I'm going to take the Cyclones because they're just going to have a tiny bit more explosive plays. Iowa's defense will play well. The under will hit. It will be a very fun game. They get game day there. I'm taking the Cyclones close, But Kirk Ferentz, I think he needs to eventually go because he'll never achieve anything worthwhile in Iowa City. That's kind of how I view Ferentz right now.
The interesting thing about Ferentz, and I don't necessarily disagree with you, it's like he's always mentioned for years the NFL, the NFL, the NFL. I'm not sure what the allure with him is, but he's a highly respected coach. I am actually going to disagree with you here. If it was me, I would lean towards the Hawkeyes in this one. I was very underwhelmed with the way that the Cyclones looked against what Iowa. They play like Northern Iowa, a very good FCS school, but very underwhelmed. I mean, you're a Big 12 team. You should be winning before overtime, and getting lucky to fall on a fumble. You know, they fumbled the ball away in overtime and somehow recover it. They would have lost the game. I think Iowa's going to be solid. I do agree that Ferentz, overrated coach, but I would take the Cyclones.
Can Brock Purdy hit explosive plays, or with Hakeem Butler, there's no players that can win on the outside?
I think Brock Purdy can hit explosive plays. Do they have the offensive weapons right now to step up and do that? I'm not sure. I mean, someone's got to step up there. The offense looked terrible. I mean, I think a big loss for them, obviously, is Hakeem Butler, and obviously it's David Montgomery. I mean, you have a workhorse running back in the Big 12. I mean, they just have not seemed to replace that after 1 week. That's overreaction, but just got to call it like you see it, too.
You know what game is going to be really interesting, and this just kind of gets me going because I love college football, and to the average fan, it might not get people going, but ESPN at noon is showing Skylar Thompson, and they're showing Kansas State, and I said Skylar would be like a first-round guy. I'm really not sure about that. It might have been very premature. Mississippi State's hosting the game. I'm sure Mississippi State is favored. I could look it up. Do you think Kansas State can go in there without Bill Snyder, this new coach Kleiman? Do you think Kansas State has a chance in this game? I mean, are you excited about this one as well?
Honestly, Spencer, I have not even thought about this game. But that being said, it's going to be very, very interesting to see. Yeah, you had your big take on Skylar Thompson. It was a great film breakdown. I totally disagree on the take. I think it's a crazy take, but I do see the throws that he makes. I think it's a crazy take just for him because he's inconsistent. But if the consistency were to come, maybe quarterback-rich draft, maybe he's a third, the fifth-round pick, maybe. But that being said, the thing that excites me for Mississippi State is, does Tommy Stevens take the next step? Does he consistently throw that ball downfield, which you didn't see from Nick Fitzgerald? You know, the guy can still run the ball. He's not Nick Fitzgerald, but that being said, he'll throw the ball down the field. I think he's a little inconsistent for my taking. That Mississippi State defense, SEC defense, it's going to be way too much for Kansas State to handle, though. I don't see this one being very close.
All right, let's go to Alabama. I think that them running the ball against Duke was very worrisome. They played New Mexico State. I know it's coach's alum out there. It's still one of the worst football teams ever in college football. Well, right now it is one of the worst. It is like the worst program in college football. They played Alabama. This Helinski kid's going to be interesting. I think that South Carolina could cover. Or do you think that Will Muschamp is going to get run over again?
What is the line on this one?
I think it's like 23, but I gotta check.
Okay, well, I think anything under 28, I would say that they probably most likely cover. New Mexico State, as you said, it's a worrisome program. It's worse than a 1AA program. They'd probably be an 8 to 7 win team in that good 1AA conference, and where you got North Dakota State and all those, the Jackrabbits of South Dakota State. They're not good. They're just not good. You know, it's South Carolina should be able to throw the ball and just run right through them. The defense won't give up much. If it's anything under 28 points, and don't think twice.
Let me see the line on this game. It's a 3:30 game, and it is 26. So
Take South Carolina.
let's see other games. We have Penn State. Penn State. What team are you more jacked about, Penn State or the freaking Maryland Terrapins? I mean, who's overrated? Who's underrated? What about Maryland and Penn State? I want to hear your opinions on those teams.
I think Penn State, I don't know what to make of them through the first few weeks. I mean, every year it seems like James Franklin just, beats up on these bad teams. Then, everyone goes, hoorah, I'm going to, coach isn't going to be too happy with me on this one, but he's an underwhelming guy in my opinion. I think, he speaks great, he recruits great. I'm not sure that he really coaches great, I don't buy into anything Penn State does until they really show it, A few years ago, they blow the big lead against USC. I mean, it was what it was, but it's just one of these teams that just when you get excited about Penn State, they have a good win, they come out and they just have terrible losses. I kind of feel like I know what James Franklin is. That being said, we're going to transition into Maryland. Big into this resurgence with what's the coach's name? Mike
Loxley with Saban last year. Buy into it. I really believe it. This team. I mean, supposedly, if you believe it for what it is, Loxley turned down Jalen Hurts because he believed in this quarterback more. If you believe the story for what it is, Wow.
Quarterback has looked great. Jackson. Yeah, I mean, it is a wow if that story is actually true. He told Hurts he just wasn't going to recruit him. He was going to go with Jackson. That's from what I have read.
Yeah, and they're so fast. And Dino Babers, like, oh, man, that was the worst performance ever from Dino. And I got to wait and see on Maryland, though. I think that they're a little bit like Penn State. And I looked up Loxley's past. It wasn't that impressive. But dang, I mean, I think they have to prove it a little bit more. I do. Consistency.
I would tend to agree. The only reason I buy into Loxley, we're not talking college football playoff. I'm talking about buying into them into a weak ACC. The weak ACC.
No, it's Big Ten. They're actually in the 10, but I would get confused with that too.
Oh, yeah, you're 100% right. That's complete brain fart there. Holy.
You know what?
Yeah.
I think I should cut you off and this podcast is over. You're never coming back.
Yeah, you know what? I feel like Mike Francesa. I'm going off on tangents. I don't know what I'm talking about, But you know what? I'm never going to be wrong.
I just wanted to expose you. That was the goal.
What?
End your career. I just wanted to come on here, and it's a whole spoof, and I just was quizzing you the whole time, seeing if you'd break.
And you know what? I did. I finally broke, but it is what it is. I'm not wrong.
It's the damn Big Ten, but guess what? We're going to get Maryland and we're going to get Penn State. And that call to James Franklin, I think the one thing is at Vanderbilt, he was awesome. And McSorley, you could definitely make that argument. McSorley saved Franklin a lot of money. The most famous Franklin call has been 4th and 5. And you know what's funny? I know, Coach, I live in Philly. It's so funny because I remember when Michigan was beating Penn State, guess what? They wanted to run Franklin out of town. Do you remember that?
Yes. I 100% remember it. I mean, basically there's two guys that have saved Franklin's job. McSorley, as you pointed out, and obviously the man on the Giants, Saquon. I think, once again, though, I got to give Franklin the credit. He recruited these guys, so, it's not like he didn't get these guys on campus and they did what he expected them to do too, But those two guys have been crucial in, keeping his job. So he hit on those guys. I think that Penn State is always going to be kind of that above average, but never quite taking that step over the top into that Big Ten, which is very hard to do with Ohio State and even Michigan if they ever put anything together.
We're going to call him David Longhorns. You did a heck of a job on the debut episode of Rover Sports. We're going to try to do this every single week. I want to thank everybody on YouTube we got a late $5 donation, so we actually earned money on this show from my friend Top Streams. I guess our last question, a special $5 donation on YouTube.
Spencer, quickly, I will be expecting that check for $250 in the mail later today. But as we go,
I need you to help with this show. He says Josh Allen stats prediction. I wonder if Venmo will even accept the $250. But
don't worry about the $250. We're gonna put that $250 onto a special parlay. We may be advertising our picks later, but we'll.
We need a website, right?
We're gonna set up a PayPal account. I will be giving my picks if you actually want them. But we'll do that for next week. But
I know. I'm looking at these lines, and I see picks I really like, but I don't want to get in any trouble on the air.
Yeah, we're not going to do that. I don't give up these picks for free. You got your free pick with South Carolina from me. But
right.
Josh Allen this week, I would expect maybe something like 220, 240 yards. I think Devon Singletary is going to have a big game. I think he's going to manage the game. Hopefully the Giants, the defense shows up a little bit more. But, I think
you know what, David? I was just thinking about this. We should do the thing that CBS Sports does where it's like that machine that picks against the spread. And we could just say you're like 80-35 in your last 120 games. And you don't actually give a pick. You just tease the game. And you get people to click on that link.
I'm a stand-up guy, if you know anything about me, Spence. I'll live by every word I say. I don't need the help of CBS. If I'm picking 30%, guess what? You guys will just come here and beat the heck out of me. And you know what? I'm a stand-up guy. I'll be right here.
You'll be ready for it. Well, David.
I'll be ready for brutality.
That's it. We're going to sign off. I want to thank all the subscribers today. It was an audio podcast. I'm going to even give them a Jimmy Garoppolo film review so they get a little ice cream today.
Oh, God. Maybe you throw a few Steve Young references in there and then, you give them a little cherry on top.
Exactly. Well, David, thank you so much. We're going to sign off. Say goodbye to the listeners. Let's do it again soon.
All right. Until next week.
All right. Take